How long have you been doing this?
So what in particular do you mean by this?
Oh, I mean, you're a man of many talents. Are you a sponsored stuntman?
At the moment I am. I think I have like 5 sponsors.
Okay.
Became an ambassador for one right away, and that kind of fueled my, desire to keep going with that.
Did that come first, or you had always been riding bikes and then just picked those up later on?
Well, when I was real young, I kind of was, frightened at first because my stepdad was a professional rider, and I would go watch him race when I was real young, and he would win all the time, and I would see him just roost all over people, and he was so fast it looked like he was out of control, but it was so controlled. It just really sparked my interest when I was young, so as soon as he put me on a bike, I fell in love with it. Among a bunch of other things, I love skateboarding, mostly individual person sports, like skateboarding,
Yeah.
snowboarding, surfing. I picked up a lot of it really naturally as I was young, not in a competitive way. It just was very natural. I would skateboard with my older brother who had more experience and time behind things, and I would leapfrog him and he'd get all upset, and that's when I realized I had more talent than the average person, balance wise and just understanding physics and stuff, and what the thing I'm riding is capable of, in general.
And when you say that he did racing, motocross or
he did street racing.
Okay.
So first experience with the motorcycles was he was a speedway racer, so flat track,
Okay.
off-road style, but, pitched sideways the whole time.
Yeah.
And I think he took second in the nationals one time. And then also was an AMA racer with street bikes and rode 98 GSXR 750.
Oh, nice.
On the track full time, but his bike was always at home, so I'd sit there and stare at it in the garage, of course, and he'd start it all the time and do maintenance. And one time he took me to school on it when I was, I think, middle school, pretty young. There's no seat on the back of it. It's a race bike, but, we were late and had to get there quick. So, right down the double yellows in between all the cars when I was really young, and I was just petrified at first, but I got there just thinking about it all day at school, being like, man, that was amazing, really. I could do that every day, thought
And
to
for
myself.
a kid, come on, to be just
Yeah.
hauling ass like that.
Yeah, of course I pull up. I'm in a small high school in Mendocino, California, down there, and there's nobody out front of the school. When I pull up on this amazing motorcycle, I'm just like,
Where is everybody? Somebody
yeah,
pull
I'm
a
like,
fire alarm.
somebody, someone, no one.
Yeah.
That was awesome. I thought to myself, and as soon as I was old enough and capable of gathering some money, I think I was 18. I bought my first street bike. I got a GS 500. I didn't want to start with a full-on Repla race bike. I'd known from previous riding dirt bikes and stuff growing up that I didn't want to start on something too huge and hurt myself. So I started with the GS 500 and wrecked a bunch of times, learned a bunch of stuff, all the in and outs of just basic traffic and street riding. And I had a lot of mentors in a way because I was riding in Shelter Cove, and there was a few really experienced professional riders that came from that area. So I got the chance to ride with them a few times and get some pointers early on, which helped dramatically, like compared to other people's learning it that don't have a coach or a mentor. I was already advanced, with, like I said, talent. All I needed was a few pointers. And so then my next bike was an R1. I had a bunch of fun with that thing, but I broke my back down in Willits.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. You'd think to most people that'd probably be a wake-up call, but bought another bike immediately as soon as I could stand.
Totaled the bike then.
Yep.
Obviously, if you broke your back, that's
Yep.
a safe bet.
And unfortunately, I was on my way to sell it right then.
Oh, no
Had to
shit.
call the buyer and be like, I'm laying on the side of the road. I think the bike's probably done for.
This is probably not going to work out.
Yeah, I'm like, you can go get it from the tow shop if you like.
Oh.
I offered it to him for free. I think he did go get it. I think he paid them $500 and went and got it as a parts bike.
What happened? Just laid it down, or?
Well, at this time, I was early on. There wasn't so much camera footage out at this point, and police activity was bit different than it is now. I'd say there's more leniency against motorcycles now than there was back then. So I carried a backpack with duct tape and would duct tape my license plate, when I was going anywhere that was out of my little local town, because I didn't want them to, see me doing something I shouldn't. When you leave town is your opportunity to do something where the cops don't recognize you on a motorcycle, So I got to a construction zone, and I didn't want to get seen with the duct tape on my license plate, so I am going along the side of the cars, but in between the oncoming traffic and my lane, and I was just about to get to the last vehicle where the guy was up there with the sign, and I was probably 3 or 4 cars away, and he turned it to the slow, and all of a sudden traffic starts moving, but I'm doing like 50 over in the construction lane, the spot where I'm kind of not supposed to be. And so traffic starts moving along with me. They're going maybe 15 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour. And there's a sharp turn right after the construction worker with the sign. And first vehicle that comes the other way is a semi-truck. And I'm in its lane and doing, maybe 30 miles an hour more than the traffic that I'm immediately next to. So I tried to hug in between all the vehicles, but I didn't get there, and I hit the back of a 4Runner and ejected over it and landed in the other lane anyways because of the turn. Just missing the semi, but I did hit another car with my head, and I believe that's what broke my back. Don't necessarily know what part of the impact broke the back, because I hit the ground real hard after the ejecto over the vehicle, but sounds real bad. But to be honest,
I was gonna say, it
I,
doesn't sound good.
I felt like I could stand right up. I just didn't want to, because I didn't know how bad my injuries were.
Did you try to get up? No, you stayed right
Nope.
there.
I was, in fact, when I landed off the bike, I tried to hug into a fetal position out of some sort of instinct. I was skipping down the road, and I was on my side, and the bumper and front tire of I think it was a little Honda Civic or something, hit my helmet, and it spun my feet under the rear wheels. So my feet got run over, and it didn't break my ankle, but it did show bone. It was open wounds and stuff, and a lot of spraining. So that was probably the worst part of the.
Your bone was sticking out.
Not necessarily sticking out, but it was exposed
Okay.
on the ankles.
But it didn't break anything.
Mm-hmm.
That's impressive.
It had a quite large hole that went through the heel too, and one portion of it through a quarter of it, and I still don't have nerve, feeling in that portion of my foot there. A little awkward when I dance, but other than that, just let me know if I'm standing on a foot. But that was probably the first wake-up call, like wreck-wise, that really puts things into perspective of what can happen really quickly. And, I had a lot of confidence, was a cocky rider, had gone down plenty of times before that, but never an instant stop like that. In fact, the vehicle was traveling the other way, not too fast, but it was enough to reboot me, like brain-wise. Where am I? What am I doing? Oh, yeah, I was riding. Oh, yeah, wreck. Probably shouldn't move. But like I said, I landed in the fetal position. It did hit my head and then spun my feet under it. So immediately I tucked even further into the fetal position because my feet got hurt. It took my shoes, both of them, off and stuff. So it was just bare skin exposed right there immediately. You could see blood dripping out of my feet. So I tried not to move much. So they did have to cut all my gear off at that point and put me on a gurney, and I did have some back pain. I do have a broken neck, and I don't actually know when that happened. I've wrecked a lot of times. I've
Somewhere
gone
along the
unconscious
way.
a couple times, in wrecks and stuff, and somewhere along the way I broke my neck. It may have actually been that same accident, and I just didn't know that I had done it, or didn't get x-rays on my neck at that point. Also, healthcare wasn't that great back then. They let me out of the
Jesus.
hospital. I did have some fractures in my ankle, and they just let me out with a air cast. This, I don't know if you know what that is.
I don't.
You fold it up on both sides. It's got some Velcro that you can tighten around the sides, and then it's got a little port for a bicycle pump, and you pump it up. It's supposed to keep your foot in place. But at that point back then I didn't have insurance, and I was on the state whatever they had, and they basically, when they found that out, is when they came and were like, we're gonna let you go right now. And I was like, right now? It's been like 2 hours since I got in the wreck. They just got the x-rays back from the back and stuff, and we're like, there's some fractures, you're gonna be real sore for a while, there's not much we can do, let us know if it gets worse, yada yada, the basic discharge.
That must have been so crazy. 2 hours in and you're getting kicked out.
So I'm like, all right, well, I mean, if I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm thinking. But man, it was,
I don't know if I would have left. I'd be like,
weeks.
listen, I don't think I'm fine. I don't know if you guys really looked at the x-ray, but I got hit by a couple cars there.
Yeah, it was I don't think that people really can judge the extent of injuries. I think their initial reaction, even doctors and medical professionals, their initial reaction is what they can physically see. It's not too often that they just assume you're not having swelling and it might be broken in there. 95% of the time there's significant swelling, purple, but I sometimes don't swell up and something will be broken and I don't even know myself. So I don't know to even ask them to check for that. Fractures in my hands and fractures in my feet, stuff from minor accidents over the years.
What was the rehab like on that? Were you
self.
walking fine? And
No. So had major injuries on my foot. It swelled up immensely. The wounds were pretty bad in the small soft tissues and ligaments and stuff in my ankle. It basically, smushed it real flat. Didn't do too much to the bones, so everything kind of went jello and then came back. But it just stretched and messed everything up. Still have permanent damage in a way in that foot. Muscles that are painful to pull on. Compared to the other foot. I did have quite the holes in the foot because of the car running it over. It just smushed it, and there was some gravel in that spot in the road because it was a construction zone, so some of the gravel actually got shoved all the way through my foot because of how flat it got. So there's holes all the way through it, in some spots. That's why there's the damage in the heel. So
what a crazy, I mean, as if the crash wasn't bad enough to hit a car and then have another car hit you and to get I mean, what if the car went over your, I don't know what your helmet was rated, but if it went over your helmet, that's...
that was the first thing I noticed after the wreck was my bike had landed on its wheels again, and I watched it roll up 20 feet or so on the road, get a little squirrely as it slowed down, and fall off a massive hill about 200 feet. And and then I saw my visor to my helmet come fluttering out of the ground like some kind of leaf. And I realized, wow, my head got banged pretty hard if that's my visor, my windscreen. And I realized I probably shouldn't move. I was like, wow, that was a ricochet effect, bounced me around quite a bit. And you kind of go into an instant shock, so you don't really remember what happened right away, all the stuff. So, probably best not to move, like I said, during situations like that. Not the only wreck I've had. I've woken up another time out in Shelter Cove with that GS 500. I don't think that the actual physical injuries were terrible, but I did go unconscious. I was doing some wheelies up a hill, and it was after a fresh rain, and I hit some needles, and before you know it, I was horizontal sideways. I think a lot of the reason I didn't get damage to my left leg where I laid it over into my hip was because I had a helmet buckled to the back of my bike. So the handlebar, the peg, and the helmet kind of created this gap for me to slide under the bike. But the kickstand caught, and that's like the last thing I remember flipping through the air. The kickstand caught, and it flung both me and the bike. I remember just seeing the sky and the ground, and then waking up to this van, my neighbor pulling up, which the houses are a good quarter mile away, and I'm just Tweety Bird's waking up all nice, it's all sunny out after a nice rain, and then it comes back to me, oh yeah, I was riding a motorcycle, oh yeah, I'm laying on the side of the road here, how long I've been laying here, and then I went to go move, so I started with my hands and feet, and I'm like, oh, everything's moving, feels okay, and I realized I was pinned up against a telephone pole with my back, but I wasn't going too fast during the wheelie. You would think it was a first gear wheelie, so, around 30 miles an hour. So I knew I couldn't hit it too hard. So I wasn't too worried about back injuries. I was just more like, wow, how did I end up over here pinned in this ditch up against the telephone pole? And I looked over, and my bike was actually on fire. I couldn't really tell because I couldn't see the flames in the daylight, so bright out, but the magnesium had caught fire on the side of the bike, and magnesium is really hard to put out. So first thing I did is try and grab this dirt and put out my motorcycle engine that's on fire, and the dirt wouldn't put it out. I'd pull it off, and I could still see the metal bubbling and melting, and I'm wondering what's going on. And then I realized it was still on fire, and it took a lot longer and a lot more wet soil to put it out. It was pretty interesting.
And so you're just over there, you just woken up, up against the telephone pole, and your first thought is, "Oh man, I gotta put this fire out." You're over here laughing. I'm thinking the neighbors. That would have been enough for me. I would have probably stopped. Thought, okay, maybe we need to reevaluate kind of our choices right here. Taking that moment, decompressed.
Every motorcyclist's first reaction, my bike. How's my bike? And you see it on fire. I snapped to action, Got put that thing out. I'm still on a ride,
Jesus.
If I'm okay, of course I'm going to get up and continue riding, So the neighbor gets out, just baffled looking, sees me get up, he's trying to tell me, don't move, you okay?
Take it from his perspective, he just walks outside and there's this guy leaning up against the telephone pole, bike on fire.
Yeah, actually, he tells me that he heard the wreck.
And
so he says he heard the wreck, waited for a little while, and didn't hear anything. So he said he was sitting on his porch drinking some coffee that morning. And like I said, it was a neighbor. I knew him, a surfing buddy. And he pulls up, and he's just, really nice guy. Super meek, very quiet. He's like, man, are you okay? You just don't move. And I'm just amped still. I'm like, yeah, I'm ready to ride again. Hop back on my bike. He's like, are you sure? Part of my engine had fallen off, the casing on that side, so it had an exposed stator coil, which is spinning when the engine is running. So I start the bike, and he sees moving parts, and he's like, yo, just don't no, you should just go home. And I'm like, no, I'm out of here. I'm good, bro. Take off, go to work. I didn't realize I actually had broken my foot. So by the time I got to work, about 5 minutes later, my foot had swollen up so much I couldn't get my shoe off. I had to cut it off with some, extreme, some of those penny cutting scissors, real strong scissors, and cut it open. Realized I probably shouldn't be at work. Had to go home early that day.
Did you stay at work for a little while?
Go home a couple hours.
Wow.
A little bit, just to see if it felt broken or not. And
just to test it out. Yeah. I mean, you want to be sure. You don't want to clock out for nothing.
It's just a little sore. I mean, I'm good.
Damn.
Yeah, that was not much of a wake up call for me, I guess, because I guess it still hopped right on the bike. Didn't do much.
That is so crazy. That is so crazy. And so the one that you hit those two cars, that one was a bit of a wake-up call.
Yeah,
How long
definitely.
before you got back on a bike?
Well, I couldn't walk for a while myself, so I was actually staying at my aunt's house close to where the wreck happened, because that's where it was closest family relative, and my Aunt Christina came and picked me up, so I was staying at her house, and I was hoping I'd be able to walk in a day or two, but it was a good couple weeks before I was okay, just lots of internal pain. Hip pain was real bad and stuff, deep bruising, and the foot would swell up real bad if I stood up because the blood would rush to it. So it took quite a while till I was on my own again, but as soon as I was, like I said, I bought another street bike. I think I bought a Ninja 600. I stepped it down a little bit, went to a 600 for a while.
Played it safe, just to be sure.
Wrecked a bunch more times. Had a blast. Learned a bit more about the technical side of street riding and what can happen, and how to avoid certain situations and better positions for your body to set up for emergencies and things that are unexpected that happen when you're street riding, because anything can happen. A couple days ago I was riding, if you follow my Instagram stuff, I posted a wheelie video. Borrowed a friend's bike a couple days ago, and that same day a hawk literally came swooping down. I'm doing over 100, just coming back from the Avenue of the Giants, and I'm by the College of the Redwoods there, Tompkins Hill over there along that little side road. And this hawk flies so close that it touches my jacket and just does this huge swoop. It was so close. I had, trail of people behind me, all just baffled, and it's something you just would never expect in a wide open field. I didn't see the hawk anywhere. It had just dropped off of a telephone line right then to catch something, at the same moment that I was coming down the road. And, I spooked it so much that it swooped into me, in the direction that I was going rather than away from it, panicked as much as I did. No time to move, no time to adjust, just a almost impact, that stuff happens pretty often street riding, especially if you ride aggressive, which I do. So, yeah.
Jesus. And no second thought once you got moving again. You're like,
nope.
I think we need another bike.
Yeah, pretty much. I was secretly, without telling my family, I'm sitting there looking at stuff on Craigslist already for sale, looking at every bike I can find, seeing what's close enough for me to get to easily and is affordable and cheap. Pretty savvy with mechanic work, so I would get stuff that sometimes needed a little bit of work for real cheap, something that someone else had wrecked, and build it back up so I could get something to ride. So I've had hundreds of bikes at this point, and not opposed to helping other people, find their little niche in what they can afford, so they can get on the road and try it if they're interested. That's one of my big passions, is helping others, get into the sport too.
We are not the same person. I was going to say, I rode for a little while, and I had a CBR 600 for a little bit, took it down to Sacramento, and the first week I was there, I saw a motorcycle wreck, and I was like, I'm done for a little bit. Nothing happened to me, and I was just like, okay, I think I could take 5 on this for a little while.
It can go so bad, but it can also go so good. You can find yourself in a mindset that you didn't expect yourself in, and because you're just riding out somewhere where you didn't plan on ever visiting, or maybe that you didn't expect to have a chance to get to because you didn't have access and your motorcycle does, or certain situations you'll find yourself in can be so fun and unexpected, just as much as the negative side, the wrecks and stuff that happen that are unexpected. So it's a win-lose type of thing. It's a gamble, but for me, I guess something probably clicked when I was young, where it was, real fun, and it always made my passion there. So even if I'm having a bad day, it's like an instinct. I know all I gotta do is get on that thing with the wheels out there, and I'll be smiling before I know it. And it's like a run-to therapy in a way, that just always brings a smile to my face. And gotta say, my wife didn't expect to ride motorcycles. She didn't have really much desire to. We got these electric bikes, and she found it so easy because there's no clutch to drop and all that she fell in love with it right away, and now she rides almost every time I go, has on her own bike. It's pretty
just
awesome.
The electric ones, or you? Okay.
She does ride. She had a Grom. I taught her to use the clutch. I thought it was essential for her to learn.
Those things are really cool, and that'd be a perfect little starter bike.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I think it's important not to intimidate someone with too big of a bike or too much power at first. That's why I think the electric bikes are good, because they're so quiet. It's not intimidating to people. It's a great way to learn to trust yourself and your judgment, because your instincts are pretty much on point. You think you're going to loop out when you start doing a wheelie, you're about to loop out when you're doing that wheelie. Your mind tells you danger in a healthy way. People think, oh my God, I'm scared of heights. That's a healthy fear. That means you can die if you fall from there, or you can hurt yourself. And, I find that all useful, and I don't avoid, the bad stuff that can happen, the thoughts. In fact, they're just as much as focusing on the road. People say, look into your corners. Well, in my peripheral, I'm looking at everything around it even more than the actual road. I'm not even actually directly looking at the road. I'm looking at everything, looking for that hawk to come dropping down any second, or a pebble to be there in the corner of my eye that I didn't see. you know, because any of those can put you down on a street bike. But if you learn to avoid those stuff on instinct and look for that, you know, I go by years without going down, you know, at pretty extreme paces, you know, sliding tires around a lot of corners, wheelies at all the corners, you know, 100 plus through the twisties a lot, you know, and most people would think that's dangerous. And, you know, here I am, all my limbs, you know, I can still.
Well, I don't know if you're the poster child for that.
I wouldn't say that,
but you are still, you're walking around, you're not in a body bag.
I can still sprint down the road. I'm 35 today, my birthday.
Oh, today's your birthday?
Yes,
okay,
it is.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Yeah, so hence the suit here.
I like it. I was going to comment on that. I'm digging the suit.
Yeah, so trying to enjoy my day. It was a little rainy this morning. I wasn't sure if I'd get a chance to ride, so yeah.
Well, it is a freeing experience, right? There's not really anything else like it.
Yeah.
When you're just hauling ass.
You don't get the chance to think of other stuff.
Mm-mm.
When you're at emergency speeds and your mind is focused on, you know, such extreme stuff, you don't have the chance to focus on the stress. You forget all the stress and you're just focused on that pure enjoyment, that pure learning experience, and something totally separate from the rest of life. You know, it's like when you step into a piece of art, you know, or something like that. You start drawing something, you can't even hear what the people are saying beside you when they're over there talking in a conversation. You're over there focused on your drawing, and it's a whole separate experience from, you know, the rest of life. And that's pretty awesome because it also still incorporates the rest of the world and the stuff around you, you know, like beautiful scenery, people. You meet people that you may never have made friends with, and because you both ride, there's your mutual interest. And you know, I've met some really awesome people that are so diverse, you know, that I would have never come across them or spoke to them if it hadn't been that we pulled up to the same spot on a motorcycle, you know. So, you know, that's probably one of my favorite things too, is, you know, the brotherhood it brings, you know, sisterhood, the whole companionship, you know. It's just this automatic, oh, you like those things too? You think they're fun? Awesome. I'll bet we'd get along. And it's like, it's this assumption that you'd get along that just makes it, I think, more comfortable for people, you know, to become friends and stuff. They just assume, oh, you like that? We're probably similar to, you know.
It is like a built-in friend group, right? Especially just riding around on the street. Everybody waves to everybody if you're on a motorcycle.
Absolutely. It's an untold rule. You know, we don't even, I see some of my friends will post, you know, getting butt hurt, someone didn't wave back or something, you know. Oftentimes someone doesn't see you or whatever, but the experience should be a surprise anyways. I don't think it should be a written rule, you know. It should be like, oh, someone just waved, hey, what's up, wave back. And it should be that pleasant surprise always, you know. When I'm doing wheelies through town on my Sur-Ron on my electric bike, I'll come across, you know, some businesswoman in an SUV who's texting away, and then she notices me and drags her out of her busy, stressful day, and she's got this, you know, discerned look on her face, you know, doing something, and all of a sudden she looks over and it brings this smile that she didn't expect, you know. Or kids, man, it lights them up. I can tell because, you know, sometimes, you know, I've been riding for 20 something years on this. It's some of the people I've met have considered me idols, you know, and they're like, grow up and they become riders, and they're like, you inspired me and you gave me these tips, and now check this out. And, you know, it's awesome to see them fall into that same passion, you know, for the companionship. Really, it's the, hey, you do it too, so I do it, and I want to be like you, and let's all do it together. And you know, a lot of people try not to conform, you know, they try not to do the same thing as everyone. But why wouldn't you want to do the same thing if it is fun as heck? You know what I mean? So I think generally it brings joy. There's a lot of pain in, you know, people getting lost. You know, I've lost a lot of friends riding, a lot of close friends, you know, people I would consider, you know, my top 5 friend groups, you know. And it's life-changing, but I know that they died doing something they loved, you know, and that they weren't ashamed to die for, you know, and doing, myself included. If I died on a motorcycle, I wouldn't want people to be upset that I died on a motorcycle. I was doing something I was avidly passionate about and enjoyed doing and knew the risks of, So
that's something that people that haven't found what they're truly passionate about don't fully understand, is that idea of being willing to die for something because you love it so much. Because people hear that and they're like, that's crazy. Why not just not ride a bike?
yeah, right. Do
But
some
there's
art, like
something,
I was
yeah,
saying.
yeah, stay at home, play video games.
Pretty hard to kill yourself with a pencil
Yeah.
drawing, but
But that's a real tangible feeling. The idea of not being able to do this just because you could eat yourself to death. You could walk out of here and get hit by a car. Like, there's so many other things that people don't take into account.
A bigger fear for me is just laying on my deathbed one day, with some painful ailment, dying of cancer, and realizing I didn't go for the stuff I wish that I knew at that moment that I had the courage to do and wish I had tried. Some people might think, oh, street bikes are expensive, things like that. How do you afford, the nice bikes and stuff? And it's never crossed my mind why I spent that money, or if it was too much. I just simply am always trying to gather more to fuel that passion in that, that comfort zone in my life. I could have 10 bikes and still not have enough, but it got to be realistic, I have children and a life to support.
And bikes are expensive?
Yep. So it is expensive. In my opinion, is well worth it. Like I said, I would have 10 bikes if I could afford it. But also there's always that desire to help, the people that are around me rather than overconsume myself. So I usually try to just keep one nice bike, one thing that I care about. If I got 2 bikes, I feel like I'm over-consuming what I need. I should be offering that to one of my friends that could ride, So, that's one of my reasons for helping other people find vehicles and bikes and making sure they stay on the road. I do like free work, from the whole group often. I don't necessarily like to advertise that all the time, but oftentimes I'll see that the group's falling short because of people lacking the funds to do mechanic work, and I tell them I'll do it for them as long as they watch and they learn how, so they can do it themselves next time.
That's a good way to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it teaches people to be confident and also to look for the things that can be dangerous, maintenance-wise, on any vehicle. Cars and bikes. Bikes are, very particular because you got one wheel in the front. Got to make sure everything is going well because you have one chance, one opportunity. If you lose that line, your little lane of wheels, it goes down. You can't bring it back, So.
And is that for the Facebook group? That group that you run?
Yeah, I have a pretty avid group of close friends that ride every weekend for sure. I haven't been riding so much lately, mostly just because I'm trying to figure out where I want to go with my career and stuff, and trying to settle in with my children. Make a little more comfy home life for everyone, myself included. So. Yeah, I recently sold my Italian bike, which was pretty difficult. A lot of people ask how I can sell some of the nice bikes I've had. Like, why would you ever get rid of that? I always think to myself, well, there's always another one waiting that's even nicer. So if you follow me and look at the stuff I've had, you always notice, well, it started years and years and years ago, and it just progresses. And I don't necessarily have to spend more money on things. It's just kind of goes with the inflation, as things get nicer, they get more expensive, but it's all relative, so my last bike I spent over $10,000 on initially, and I'd say I was the happiest I had been with a purchase on a motorcycle, even though it was probably the most I had spent, initially on a bike that I hadn't even modded myself yet, but it was the nicest bike I had ever owned, and was definitely difficult to sell, but I'm anxious to find something even cooler and nicer.
What kind of bike was it?
Well, that was a Aprilia factory 1100. It was a 2-ono, so it was an upright riding position, but still had the full race motor. It was a 2016, so it had the first year of the 1100 motor as opposed to the 1000, which I kind of didn't think it was going to be that much more power because I had a couple of the 1000s already, 3 of them previously. But the 1100 was amazing.
Noticeable difference.
Very, very noticeable. Anyone who's on the fence, buying an older 1000 Aprilia V4 as opposed to the 1100, 2016 and up, I definitely would suggest the 1100. It's worth the couple grand extra. Yeah. The traction control and all that, I didn't think I would need when I was growing up. Grew up dirt riding, sliding the tire was fun. I didn't think that it would be useful on the street. I thought that was all weird track mumbo jumbo, but tried a few bikes with electronics the past few years, and it is the next level, which helped me get into the electric bikes. I realized that electronics were the future, and I was building drones and stuff, and it opened my eyes to this stuff is ungodly overpowered, and it's just touching the surface. If that was stuff I could build myself, I was just wondering what real engineers, multiple minds together, were thinking of already. So I'm not surprised the Sur-Ron has come out, such an amazing bike at an affordable price. There's really nothing else like that. Everything else is $10,000 plus. I think they were roughly $5,000, something like that. Really, 5 years ago, you couldn't have bought something like that. They just didn't have that.
How did you get affiliated with them?
Well, I was transferring over to electric trikes. I was building drift trikes. I was building gas-powered ones, but here in California, we have so many limits and so many rules on stuff. Not that I'm too opposed to some of it, but one of them is that if you're riding, something that's not registered, it has to be 50 cc's or less. And a lot of times the gas-powered drift trike 50 cc's just isn't enough for a grown adult, so it's putting 250 cc motors and stuff on them, and of course that gets some attention from the police, in little neighborhoods, and annoys the neighbors. And my solution was to go electric, and it was, my first prototype just blew me away. It was faster and funner than the gas-powered one, mostly because it was front-wheel drive, but also because of, just the sheer wow factor. Every time you hit the throttle, that it's just silent, and it's something you don't expect to enjoy that much, or you don't expect it to actually pull you that fast. So I was getting into trying to overpower them and stuff, just like I was with the electric RC stuff, the RC cars and drones. Overpowering them, putting a different speed controller and battery was all the hype, tuning it yourself. So of course that's what happens when you have an electric powered, vehicle that can push a person. You want to give it more power, of course. California's maximum, I think, is 750 watts, which is really low. So a lot of companies sell bikes that have, a little off-road button, for it, and it gives it more power. The Sur-Ron included, there's a button on there, and it gives it 5,400 watts, and it's enough to haul 200 plus pound grown man just fine. It really blows you away because it goes for hours, like well over an hour at least with even a full-size adult. And you're just so used to the old RC car when you had as a kid that went for 10 minutes and wasn't that fast. And then you see all these blistering fast ones in the current years. And now to see it happening with the electric motorcycles, that's something that you can see how it's built just by looking at it. It's something you're just like, it's that simple. There's just a battery, a controller, and a motor run to a chain. It's just so simple that it's a no-brainer why you wouldn't convert from gas over to that. There's no oil to change in it. There's no clutch to replace. It's not burning all this emissions. One just fumes to stink you up, While I'm doing a wheelie coming into a stop sign, my exhaust is pointing at the ground, and it just billows up into you. You smell like fumes by the time you get home off of every ride. It's inevitable. The electric bike, I can ride it at 2 a.m. if I'm not sleeping and come home and I'm in the same condition. Hell, I ride in this suit sometimes.
It'd be fun, yeah.
Yeah. And it's very therapeutic because you can do it without that fear of annoying people, with the sound, scaring people with, some big ugly motorcycle, it gets a lot more thumbs up than a normal motorcycle.
Do a lot of bikers push back on that though? Because that whole loud bike save lives, that was a big mantra for a while.
So I mean, in particular, probably the biggest like type of group that hates them is the motorcyclists. It's kind of like when I remember snowboards becoming real popular. I was born in Tahoe and stuff, and seeing the skiers just hate them.
On them.
But me coming into it right as they were there, I just didn't understand it because I saw both at the same time. Saw the snowboard being developed, and turning to the double-ended, what it is today, and seeing the skiers literally ban them from all of the ski lifts, saying they were dangerous and this and that, just anything they could. It's identical. It happened with 4-strokes in racing. You can't race that dirt bike against us 2-strokes, blah, blah, blah. How's that going to work? You got 450 cc's. I have 250, yada, yada. It all worked out, and the 4-strokes won. I, myself, was a 2-stroke fan for years, and I refused to convert to 4-stroke. And then I rode my first one, and after 2 seconds of riding it, I was just so mad at myself that I had that kind of pride that I wouldn't let myself try something because of what I thought other people would think of me. So that's one reason that I just dive into things without fear of what society thinks. I'll buy a motorcycle that someone thinks is just ridiculous. So like, why would you put that much into that, into the exhaust, into the tires, into this? And it's just, like I said, it's really amazing, passionate thing for me. It's something I don't think I'll ever stop, even if I wanted to. It draws money out of my life constantly, but even when I'm struggling, I still have that desire to go ride. It's there still, so I find it, where there's a will, there's a way. The electric bikes are amazing because it's cents to ride it. It's 20 cents or something to charge that thing, and I go for hours.
For a full charge. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's insane.
Yeah.
It's definitely the future. Yeah. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I have had a few friends from the motorcycle group ride it, and they're just amazed. And they try and tell the others, they're like, stop hating. No, for real, you got to try it. And so many people are so unwilling to come and sit on it and try it. They love their loud bikes, me included. Definitely missed the Aprilia, and it would wake the dead, but there's definitely an appeal to that, and it was gobs more power. A totally different machine. This is an off-road, more of a trials bike, so it's not meant to have 200 horsepower. That would be ridiculous. But there's definitely, it's two different sports basically.
Can you ride it on? Is it street legal? No.
So there's, like I said, there's the button there, and you can ride it as a e-bike.
Oh, okay.
So you can push that button on there, and you can put it in the bike lane. And I don't actually have mine registered, but I think in California, technically, you're supposed to register as a moped, which then you don't need insurance, and you don't need a Class M1 license, or your motorcycle license even to ride it. It's basically classifies as a little 50cc kids bike, or one of those gas-powered whizzer bikes you see all the guys riding on in town. So even though I don't have a plate on mine and a registration sticker, I've never had any negative contact with law enforcement, and I see them every day. Sometimes they'll be down on the plaza, with all the bars there, and I'll do circle wheelies around their cars, and they just love it. Roll their windows down, chatting the whole time. Very friendly vibe that way. I try to be as respectful as I can. It's not like I'm wheeling down the street to, intimidate people or scare anyone. I definitely stick in my little bike lane. I try and do it when there's not cars right next to me or anywhere close, and check behind me in case I ever were to wreck. I don't want someone to have to lock up their brakes and feel endangered, because I wrecked in front of them. That's one of my big fears. So if you check my videos a lot, you'll see me look around a ton. Really just trying to check out for the people around me. I'm out there with all the public, and last thing I want to do is upset anyone. In fact, I'm trying to bring smiles. Generally it does. Every once in a while you'll catch someone off guard. You'll surprise someone who's walking around a corner or something, and they were going to come jog out into the street, and they weren't looking or something. Generally I'm looking, but they get so surprised by the e-bike because they didn't hear it that their initial reaction is a anger, like, whoa, I didn't hear you,
sneak up on them,
and I could have walked into you type of reaction. And it, I have so much respect for that. I'm like, well, you probably should have looked both ways out of instinct first. A lot of people take that for granted, myself included. I've been hit on a skateboard by a Prius myself, skateboarding across the street, just assuming there wasn't a car there because I didn't hear it. Didn't even look that way.
That's one of the things that people that don't ride bikes don't really understand is most people are not paying attention. There's a lot of people that are texting and driving or messing around with their dash. Or I saw this lady, again, down in Sacramento, another bad time. I saw this lady, she was smoking a bong and FaceTiming her friend. She had her phone mounted to her steering wheel as she's driving. We're stopped at a stoplight.
2 hands are off the wheel.
Yeah, and I was just sitting there like, this is insane, but this is what people do.
Yeah, after, I'd say it probably takes about a good year of constant street riding, but you develop this instinct of constant awareness of that kind of driving. You expect it everywhere because really it's everywhere. Everyone does it. I text and drive sometimes. I'm like kidding. There's times I'm in a rush and I gotta send that text before I get there. Yada yada. So you just learn to expect it, and you, like I said, it's real rare. I think that was actually the only incident where I had ever included another vehicle in an accident with a motorcycle. Was that one 15 years ago on an R1. I've never hit another vehicle, which says a lot. Riding every day, riding extremely fast, you have that defensive driving just ingrained into you after just quite a short amount of riding,
You have to.
Mm-hmm. So, yes, loud exhaust definitely save lives. There's times I would have been cut off and, gone down. Not that I would have died, but, not to say I couldn't have died, from a small impact. Sometimes it's not a fast accident that kills you. I've had friends go down real slow and still die, hits you right way, in your head or something. And, that, so always expect that it could go real bad. I try to keep a lot of distance from vehicles, and some people get upset when a bike goes shooting between vehicles, but I think it's a lot of times that happens, because they're sitting there trying to show off in traffic. But myself, when I do that, it's to get away from the cars as fast as I can so that I'm not around big cages with people inside steering them while texting on their phone.
Death traps.
Yeah, so I initially go up to my stoplights, roll between the cars, and try and get in front and get out in front of that, little group of traffic, so I'm in less danger.
How do you feel about lane splitting?
Like I said, it's a way to get away from your cars. It's an initial reaction to bikers over time, because we stagger when we're riding anyways. You don't ride directly behind another rider. What happens if he locks up his brake? You're gonna hit his rear tire. When two tires touch, oh man, it's real funny when they're both moving one direction. The one behind it goes ejecting in the air when the rubber and rubber touch each other a lot faster than you think they would. So hitting another bike is a big no. So you just always learn to stagger off this center line from the other vehicle, cars included. When I'm following a car, I'm generally ready at any moment to snap up to in between that car and any other vehicle that might be next to it or something, because you never know when you might need to lane split. Sometimes I'm rolling in traffic and a car can slow down quite a bit faster than even a Repla Race sport bike, because of the amount of rubber that is on the ground and the fact it has 4 of those, and I've got 2 and they're round. I have a lot less surface, so when it comes to stop and go traffic, a bike stops a lot slower. In emergency situations, it's a lot easier to lock up a bike and lose control. So being able to go in between the cars is essential, even at a normal pace in traffic, because you never know when some person's going to walk in the road and the person in front of you is going to come to an abrupt stop. Most bikes, if you're following at a normal vehicle length that you would be doing in a car, you're going to hit that car if they come to one of those abrupt stops that we all spill our coffee on. That's that's something you learn right away. As soon as someone comes to stop in front of you and you almost hit them for the first time and you're like, holy cow, that didn't stop as fast as I thought it would. You learned a lane split real quick. I definitely try not to get close to vehicles. It annoys people when you get real close to their mirror. Even if you don't touch them, they get angry. Some people definitely try to cut you off and hit you. You know, they're so mad. A lot of people are from other states where it's illegal, and they just come, or they're driving through here as tourists or travelers, and they assume it's illegal. So when they see a bike coming up in between the cars, they get this road rage and they try to cut you off. You know,
which is a weird reaction.
Very odd. You know, it's just so odd to think that you should take the law into your own hands and, you know, use a vehicle to try to assault someone. It's never crossed my mind to use my vehicle to assault someone. You know, I never tried to pin someone, even in another vehicle. I never pushed them off the road. I couldn't really imagine trying to do that because I know what can happen and how bad things can go when you just make a stupid decision, you know, on a vehicle that's traveling at a rate of speed that you don't understand. You know, things can go from 20 miles an hour to 0 and change your internals. You know, you're having a bad couple weeks after that. So, you know, I definitely never play with traffic. I never encourage road rage. I've never broken a mirror, rode by and punched a mirror. You know, I've had people cut me off, flip me off for splitting lanes and try to smush me with their truck, you know, into semis, and literally realize that you would have died if you would have let them continue. You would have been smushed, that they would have acted like it was an accident, you know. And there's people out there that do that on purpose. You know, you'll see them flip you off after, and you're like, what? Well, how does someone just go to try to murder someone because of something like that? This so initial reaction.
And why? Why? Just let them pass. What do you?
Never understood it. You know, even in my car, when someone gets up on my butt, I mean, I drive fast, who we kidding? But when someone gets on my butt, it doesn't make me mad. I don't get this initial reaction of fuck you. I just simply say, oh, they're in a big rush. Let me pull off and let them by. Why wouldn't I, as a gentleman?
Problem solved.
Yeah. Look, a win-win situation. I'm not annoyed by the guy's lights or the guy on my ass, and he got to go get his ticket or whatever he needed to do. You know, so myself on a bike, I go really fast in traffic, you know, and I try and keep away from people, try to shoot out in front of any kind of problem situations and stay in the clear. Stay away from, you know, when someone flips me off and tries to cut me off with their truck, I don't hang back and try to say, what's your problem? Fuck you. I jam out of there.
Yeah.
As soon as I'm around the front of him, I'm gone. And if if people don't let you pass, you just take another route. Don't use road rage, especially on a motorcycle. This could go real bad.
You get a better perspective of the road when you strip away that steel cage and you're on a bike. You almost become a better person in a way.
Yeah.
Like if everyone just rode motorcycles, we wouldn't have nobody would be dying. We wouldn't have any problems.
Yeah. If
everybody would watch out for each other.
You know, everyone accidentally cuts someone off at some point. You pull out and this guy was going a little quick and you still were moving. So you had to keep going into traffic. Otherwise you would have had to oddly back up or something. So, you know, people get cut off. I cut people off on my motorcycle just the same. You know, you got to pull out and, there's a truck coming, you know, and he's got to hit his brakes. And I just feel so bad generally. I'm like, oh, man, I feel terrible, you know, and I don't think that it's ever anyone's right to, you know, assume that, you know, they should have this superiority complex that, well, I was coming out and you need to stop anyways. It's still somewhat rude, in my opinion, when you accidentally cut someone off, even if it's not your fault. So I'm generally always just apologetic. Even if they're mad and flip me off and say, fuck you, I'm still just like, I'm so sorry. You know, just this general, like, I could have gone bad. I could have got hurt. You could have got hurt. I mean, even if it's just a small fender bender, it sucks, you know. A scratch on any vehicle sucks, especially when it's your baby. You know. Hell, if I got an ugly old crappy Honda, I'm still my baby. So, you know, I try to be really respectful that way of everyone and the dangers that can happen.
Yeah, it's just, you got to be careful of people. People in cars are just dangerous a lot of the times.
Yeah, here in Humboldt, you get a lot of that because we have such the backwoods, rural areas. People are used to driving where they don't see too many vehicles, so by the time they get into town, they're very accustomed to their, cutting lanes, going off the shoulder a bit.
Swerving in and out of traffic.
Yeah, so coming into town, they're not so worried about going into the bike lane, but as I'm coming along at 35 miles an hour on my electric bike, it's pretty rude to cut into the bike lane, because it could force me into a parked vehicle, something of that sort. So.
Is that the top speed on those things? 35?
No, it's generally just the speed that I'm comfortable at around town because I don't want to speed. Most speed limits are 25 to 35 around town. And
35 in a bike lane is pretty good.
I mean, you can die on a Sur-Ron. In fact, there was an unfortunate story I heard recently where someone in Hawaii, I read, was coming down a hill on a Sur-Ron way too fast. People upgrade them, to go over 80 miles an hour. Guy had upgraded his and was coming down a hill and hit a real famous surfing pastor from a church and died on impact. The motorcyclist was geared up and he was fine, but the pastor died immediately. And he was a huge part of the community, teaching kids how to surf for years. He was a surf instructor as well as a pastor, and great influence on all kinds of people. So missed by thousands, personally, like people that he was close to. And it's just real unfortunate that people push the limits like that. I think that was something that could have been avoided. There should never be someone with an upgraded bike that's doing 80 miles an hour in a bike lane type of situation or on a trail, or even if he was on the road where he's not capable of stopping. It's like I said, I haven't even hit another vehicle on my street bikes, except for that one time, which really slowed me down and, woke me up to that kind of situation. Because I think most of all, I was feeling guilt over hitting that 4Runner because I did damage to it, and the person was so kind. Obviously, they got out when I wrecked, and the person that got out of that 4Runner was a motorcycle rider and a racer. And he's like, if you ride, first thing he said, he's like, man, if you ride, you're gonna go down. And he's like, it happens. And he lifted his shirt, and he had this huge scar going all the way down his ribs. Then he lifted his foot, and the scar went all the way from his armpit down to his ankle. And it was this huge caved-in scar, like his ribs. You could see staple marks and stuff. I just was like, I'd never seen such a horrific wound, And he asked me immediately. He was like, "Do you got insurance and stuff?" And I didn't have insurance on that bike, and I was like, "No, I don't." And he had a brand new 4Runner. It was like that year's model, and he's like, "Don't worry about it, man." And it was so cool. I just couldn't believe it. I was shocked, and he's so kind. Most people would have been mad. And I just felt so bad, and it was one of the guiltiest moments of my life. So I could never bring myself to hit someone's, investment like that and be, fine and
what a
walk
cool
away
guy,
without feeling like it.
Jesus.
Yeah, I was just so surprised. I wish I could thank him. Even to this day, I wish I was still his friend and knew who he was. I didn't get his information. Obviously, I was sitting on the road and got air vac out. So if I could, I'd, thank him and be proud to be his friend. Just because I thought that was very, probably real difficult for him to do. He probably spent money fixing his 4Runner. I probably did quite a bit of damage to the back end of it, and it probably came out of pocket for him. So.
But that's one of those perspectives you get as somebody who rides is.
Mm-hmm. I was so grateful that he didn't press charges. He didn't sue me to fix his vehicle because I would have not been able to ride again. I wouldn't have been able to get another bike. I would have been struggling to pay for his stuff, and probably would have fell out of riding, because I wouldn't have bought another street bike, So to him, I'm very grateful that he let me out of that without, forcing it, on me. If I could, I would pay him back. Now, if I could, I just, I don't know who he is, like I said, but, changed my perspective in my life a lot that day, in many ways. Respect for people, respect for the bike, respect for myself, respect for my family. You know, my aunt drove over and took care of me for weeks while I was down from a motorcycle wreck. It's like, oh, most people would have been angry and be like, it's your own fault. You know, take care of yourself type of thing. But I'm very grateful for the people I have in my life. In fact, I'm healing from a wound right now.
From another down? Oh, yeah. You're over here like, yeah, another one.
Yeah, probably 5 days out of the hospital right now.
How do you feel about all that? Does that ever weigh on you and you're just like, Jesus, just ride the e-bike?
Kind of not. He didn't say that I used to ride on the back of his Aprilia.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, oh, so you were in it with him. Okay.
Yep.
I basically know.
She knows
So you
the
get it.
pleasures of
Yeah,
riding.
okay.
Yeah, in fact, first motorcycle she had been on was my Aprilia, which probably most people would be like, you put a person on the back of your Aprilia, much less, you know, someone's first ride. So, you know, most times you wouldn't want to scare someone, but I think she fell in love with it.
Clearly worked. She stuck around.
Yeah, saw it was possible and, you know, had an experienced rider that, you know, didn't
That's
put her
the
in
key,
danger.
the experienced rider thing.
Mhm.
If you got a poor driver and somebody on the back of that thing,
It just scares them. Even if you don't go down, they're frightened when they get off of that thing.
And then they're
like,
not going to want to do it again.
Yeah, they
You
thought
just
that's
ruined,
normal.
like,
Like, oh, that's
yeah.
normal. No blinkers, swerving in and out,
Almost
cutting
going
people
down.
off.
Okay,
Yeah.
I don't think this is for me.
Yeah, so, you know, a little respect for your bike that you're riding in traffic goes a long ways on, you know, promoting the whole sport and making sure that you're being safe for everyone. You know.
And so these Sur-Rons, you said you can get a couple hours out of them? What's the mileage for that? Or the range?
I've got up over 3 hours myself.
Okay.
You know, a lot of people will probably say that not even close. But I ride real aggressively, and I've definitely been gone for over 3 hours on my bike, riding constantly through town. You know, a lot of times I'm not at full throttle, so just be tooling around. You know, maybe flipping channels or songs on my Pandora or something, only going 10 or 20 miles an hour. So that's probably what helps me get long range, you know, just toying around town, but that's what they're made for, and that's how you ride anyways. We're not racing necessarily. If we were racing them, I definitely would do some upgrades, but I probably get, you know, over 2 hours of constant riding. It takes me probably 5 hours to charge it or less. You know, it's almost relative to the amount of time that you ride. I ride for a couple hours and go charge for a couple hours, and it's back up to 95, 100% almost immediately. But I do let it balance charge overnight, make sure I'm maintaining the battery. A new battery's $1,500, so
Good incentive to maintain it.
It's like a motor to a car or something. So definitely trying to take care of my battery. But I've never had one go bad. I've brought one back that people thought were bad too, and had them work for still now years, you know. My current bike, Sur-Ron, has well over 2,000 miles on it with pretty much zero maintenance, you know, just the usual lube the chain, check my tires, and I replaced my brake pads now twice in the rear, mostly from stunting. So, yeah,
I mean, it's clearly got plenty of power if you're popping wheelies on it.
yeah, what's cool about it is the comfort zone that you have, because there's no intimidation of the motor. You know, even an experienced rider, that intimidation, you hear something growl under you, it tenses you up. Even if you try not to and you try and stay relaxed, a 200 horsepower superbike tenses up anyone when you full throttle that thing. So the Sur-Ron, you can drop full throttle and still be calm, because it doesn't initially scare you with this reaction of your hearing and the vibrations and stuff. So you can really focus on your abilities more and what's going on under you. It's your initial reaction actually is reality and what's happening, as opposed to, oh my God, this could happen. You know, like the what ifs aren't there because the fear goes away. So the learning factor went up dramatically when I found the Sur-Rons, because you know, I found that I could wheelie from a dead stop because I didn't have a clutch, so I could go from literally a stop sign into the wheel picks up and you can carry it away as fast as you want, to, you know, at its top speed you can just let off for a moment and, you know, lose 2 or 3 miles an hour, and if you open it wide open again, it wants to do a wheelie again because of the linear torque that electric motors have. Obviously they're all tuned different. Different speed controllers make them perform differently. So some people will be like, oh, my motor, electric motor isn't actually a perfect line torque-wise, and they aren't. Electric motors have a power band, it does climb, but it's very linear in comparison to a gas-powered motor in general. And can put a lot more power generally to a motor than they're rated at. Oftentimes on my drones, I'd put 3 times the volts that they were ever said they could handle, and found it was fine. They just don't want to advertise that, so they're not, abusing their products.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Sur-Ron, in fact, it's well known. The bike's pulling 5,400 watts, I believe, and the battery is capable of pulling well over 8,000 watts constantly. So they're just underdrawing the battery, which is pretty nice for someone like me who can custom mod something, because I can bypass the battery myself, the battery monitoring system, and let it pull that full 8,000 watts and change my controller with, spending 1,000 less than everyone else, because they got to go bring it to some shop or something. So saves a lot knowing that stuff, understanding electronics and all that. Definitely.
And like you said, it's probably a pretty decent bike to try to do tricks on, just because you're removing that factor.
Yep. So the fear factor is the big one, but also having no foot controls. So some Sur-Rons will have a rear brake down on your peg. It's an upgraded part that a lot of people buy.
Most of them don't come with that.
No, it has the brakes just like a normal bicycle. Your left brake is your rear one, though, as opposed to most bicycles, it's the other way around. Your right brake is generally your rear brake on a bicycle. So they're swapped to be more like a motorcycle. Your right brake is your front brake, and your left one is your rear brake. But you can mod it yourself, obviously, to have a rear brake also included down on your foot. They have both a regen option that's electronically assisted, so your motor's actually what's slowing down your rear wheel. But they also have a cable, hose system, and another bracket where you can add a second caliper onto the rear and just use a normal brake for those diehard motorcycle people who can't get out of their head that their foot is the brake. And for me, I really enjoy that there's no foot controls, because it opens up the option to do all those cool foot, jumping around, some, dancing on the bike while doing wheelies and stuff. In fact, this last injury, I was doing a wheelie while standing on the seat, and I tried to hit a jump. And normally that wouldn't be too crazy, but when I landed, I was trying to land midair, I was trying to jump from the seat back down onto the pegs. So I landed back onto the pegs, and I missed the peg and hit the ground with my foot. And so it was a hard impact, and the bike just slammed into the back of my calf with the peg, and man, it can go bad real fast.
Bit of a wake-up call.
Yeah, but the option to not have to use your feet for the foot controls really opens up tricks that you literally can't do on a motorcycle. You wouldn't be able to, because of the physics and stuff. It can't do splits on a motorcycle without a handbrake. While you're doing the circle wheelies, it's just impossible. There's not enough engine braking, so.
And so are those things pretty good off-road? Do they have a pretty decent suspension system?
Both off and on-road, they are amazing. You can set it up basically immediately to be a supermoto and handle great on the street, or do great off-road. They come out of the factory to be off-road. So they come with knobby tires and 200-plus millimeters of suspension travel, like a full downhill bike, but no pedals, just pegs. And they're capable of pretty much anything that most experienced riders would ever be able to throw at it. After a year of hard use on my first Sur-Ron, I did crack the swing arm and shattered out a piece of supportive metal in the rear end, which ruined the swing arm. I did have to I actually fixed it myself, drilled holes on the 2 sides and replaced it with a stronger piece of metal. So I saw that as one of the weak points in the Sur-Ron, but overall it outperformed all my expectations by far. And already other bikes had done that, and this blew me away when I found the Sur-Ron. It's very durable. I've wrecked tons of times on it. I don't even have a chance to see when I'm tumbling down the dirt what's going on behind me, but I'm sure it's doing cartwheels too, and just get back up, get back on it, and keep going. It's pretty hard to break one of those. You did something real bad if you did. I've seen one picture online of a broken frame. Other than that, I've never seen a frame broken. Somebody had landed a double cased out on top and shattered their frame in half. But other than that, I definitely have sent it like 30 feet over jumps and landed a bit of flex in it, but I'm still here.
Still going.
Yep,
Okay.
it still made it. There's no problem jumping those over any mountain bike course that you'd have. Unless you upgrade the power, it's definitely not full motocross capable. It can't clear a 30-foot jump unless you're going downhill with some momentum and stuff. But the frame and the rest of it's there. It's capable if the power is put to it. I think that it's just in its beginning stages. They just released a new model called a Talaria is the company, and it's called a Talaria Sting, I believe. And it's similar to the Sur-Ron, but I can tell right away just from videos and pictures that it's much beefier frame. Overall, it's the same thing, very, very similar. Same wheels, the suspension and stuff. Same motor, I imagine maybe some small differences, but just the upgraded versions like the V2, and it's got strong, braces everywhere that I saw that it was weak. That's to be expected. This new Talaria Sting, I'm probably gonna pick one of those up as soon as I can, and, mod it as I see fit for stunting.
And size-wise, what are we talking? Comparable to like 100?
Well, so since it has progressive suspension in the back and the linkage going on, and there's so many aftermarket parts for them, it's cost you $50, $80 to change the link in the rear to different shaped ones that drastically change the height of the bike, along with your shock itself. You can buy a rear shock for $150, $200 brand new for one of these and have different lengths, which overall a half inch on your shock after all the linkage is done coming out to the end of your swing arm, it gives you maybe 4 inches of travel difference. So just a small changes can create huge differences in the bike overall. So her bike is a bit lowered. I didn't want to intimidate her with too tall of a bike and too much play in the suspension. So hers has, I think, 130 mil roughly of travel as opposed to mine 200. So just do the math there. It's quite a bit shorter distance. So the bike is that much lower. Also, it has a different link in the rear, which lowered it another 2 inches overall, I think, roughly. So with that, the bike is probably 4 inches lower, 5 inches lower, seat height.
But you can really customize it to get it wherever you want
in an hour or less. I could just put the other link right back in there from any other one. She has 19-inch rims on hers. I have 17-inch wheels because I tend to do more street riding. So I like the option to have 17-inch tires. Gives you all kinds of choices. Street bikes are all 17s. So opened up a wide range for me to change to 17s from the stock Sur-Ron 19s. But really, right out the back, they're amazing. It's well worth the money and definitely rideable for anyone to enjoy. Even as an experienced rider, it'll put a smile on your face the entire time. I have one friend. He's an avid rider with me. We ride open leader bikes, 1000s, and to see his smile be the same as mine when I rode it is just tells you it can surprise anyone, absolutely anyone. When you see it go by, 30, 40 miles an hour, it doesn't seem that fast. But when you're the guy riding it, you've certainly got a smile. Jet ski going over the water, you're like, how fast is that going? 150? They're like 45 miles an hour, bro. You were going 45. You're like, oh, man, it felt so fast. It's all in your perspective. It's all in, let go of your, fear of, like I said, society and what they're thinking of you. I'm sitting there playing on a kid's toy. Have the biggest grin of anyone in town, I'll tell you what.
That's how I feel about those Groms, but they're so cool. It doesn't matter that you're not, breaking 90. You're just riding.
I definitely, got the Grom for her. And of course, I'd test it out, check it out, see how I liked it.
You have to make sure everything's
And
working.
I didn't expect to like it that much. Oh man, I would put my race suit on, go out there dragging knee and sliding tire into the roundabouts, and knowing that I wasn't gonna hurt myself, having a big old grin. Obviously, couldn't join my group rides, but for myself around town, my personal fun, the enjoyment factor is just the same as the Aprilia.
Yeah.
Big old smile. The Sur-Ron is even more fun. I don't know why. What is so much more fun about it? But I'd rather ride my Sur-Ron than my Aprilia, even though the Aprilia costs me more. So why wouldn't I choose that Sur-Ron there? I actually found myself riding it much more often. I couldn't wait to get home from my street bike rides because I knew my bike was charged up at home. I'm like, all right, guys, I gotta go. I'll see y'all later. Wolf my burger in and race them home. Yeah.
What's the base cost for those?
I think it's over $5,000. It fluctuates a little bit, up and down with, supply. They're sold out almost every time you go check, but then other times they'll have 20 or 30 at a time, and you can order them directly from the manufacturer and have it shipped, freight over the seas, and it'll take months to get there. You'll save some money. Overall, you'll spend between $5,000 and $6,000 when all's said and done. Put some brake pads and some different handlebars on there and stuff, and the essentials. The seat's pretty uncomfortable. Right out of the bag. It's not terrible, but it's worth $50 buying a new one. They have some aftermarket ones about that price that are way better. So this put $1,000 more into your bike, and you wouldn't be disappointed. So still well under the price of any new dirt bike you go buy.
Yeah.
But size wise, like I said, I have a coworker. He's 6'9", 270, and his is customized to where he can barely get on it. He's got problems. He's like, I gotta stretch before I can put my leg over that thing. It's that tall. Seat extensions, shock upgrades. Aftermarket tires, you can get different widths. So when you go with the different width, your overall diameter is going to grow as well. So that's another way we get height out of a Sur-Ron. Riser bars, all different sizes these days. Go from some straight pro tapers that are almost a T. The Sur-Ron bars themselves, I think only have like a 1/2 inch rise from factory. I think I have a 4-inch rise on mine at the moment. It's quite a bit different. So all very easily customizable with mountain bike parts, So I'm also running an aftermarket rear brake. It's a TRP. It's an up and coming brand that most people would go with Magura or Hope is some of the first names you see if you want to go research what the top brakes are. But I went with that one because it was very sustainable. Had stayed without maintenance for the longest compared to all the others, and I don't always get a chance to maintain everything, so that sounded nice to me, and I'm impressed with it. It's definitely better than the stock one. It's nice. It was worth the $150-$200, So yeah, putting that money into your bike, it's never a disappointment. If I had $10,000, I would put all $10,000 into that Sur-Ron right away.
Do you make any videos, because you make those riding videos, do you make any videos where you actually are working on your bikes or anything?
I recorded all kinds of stuff, unboxing videos, all that stuff. I have hundreds of hours of footage of all kinds of cool stuff that probably people would like even more than my riding videos. Like, oh my God, you had one of those and you unboxed it, and what is that? Because working with some friends at Nerd Scooters there, recently we got like a one-wheeled electric motorcycle. I thought those were fictitious. Even seeing the ads
I don't even know what that would look like.
I didn't know. I mean, I kind of seen like a video long years ago of some prototype some guy had made where he was riding on this big wheel that was shaped like handlebars in the front and a giant wheel between his legs, and it was riding on the street. But yeah, you can buy one of those about $1,500 these days, something like that, and it's pretty incredible. It's not like it's high performance machine gonna go 70 miles an hour, but just to be able to ride on one wheel and sit on it like a motorcycle is amazing. Probably 15, 20, 30 miles an hour, something like that. But I wouldn't want to go any faster anyways. Just don't trust myself, even if it was capable. but it's really cool to see the stuff that's available. I built one of those one-wheeled skateboards recently, and actually put a longboard deck on top of it, and made it into a longboard in a way. It was really cool. It handled great, performed just like it should. It's pretty awesome. I've seen videos of people putting a surfboard and stuff on top. Pretty cool.
So the content is there. It's just the time of piecing it all together and crafting something.
Yeah. At this point, I think I'd like to go make another channel, and devote it more to the audience and like receiving some input and see what people really like to see and involving them, in a way. So because like I said, my biggest enjoyment is getting other people into it. So when I hear someone say, "Man, we'd love to see this," or "Can you do a video, show us some tips on how to do this?" I'd gladly do that. Just like to know what all my fans want to see, and probably some of the haters.
It's all part of the fun, though, right?
They can chime in and tell me what they want to see too. I always get those comments. I have a pretty famous video of me wrecking at 100 miles an hour on a Aprilia. And there's just these people who come in just to make the terrible comments. "Glad you're off the road. Hope you got really hurt," or something. Just outrageous. And you're just like, man, you just feel so bad for that person. You're like, hey, just hope they have a better day. They're going through it or something, Oh,
their life is not going well if they're commenting hate on a video of a wipeout.
Yep, it's almost 50-50. You get those people hate it, and those people that are just like, "Heal up, brother," Godspeed, all that. And you get all that love and support too. So there's always going to be the haters. Just
was
with
it
this
a pretty
electric
serious
stuff.
Crash?
Yeah, it was pretty bad. I'm a motorcycle rider, so like I said, first thing I do is check my bike. So as soon as I realized I could stand up and walk, I'm like just worried about the bike. Adrenaline's kicked in, shock's kicking in. You don't feel too much pain from anything most times. So yeah, that wreck was over 100 and sliding for quite a while. I actually didn't have my lower gear on, so it was just jeans and skate shoes, and pretty bad choice.
Yeah, not good sliding a tire.
Yeah, and I actually had a big patch of denim that had like fused with my hip and embedded into me. Large patch. I don't know how that really happened, but the hospital couldn't get it off. No one could get it off. It was just fused in my skin, so it took probably 2 months for that to fully come off and heal. I'm not really sure how that happened, but yeah, I just wore the denim away and melted it to my skin in a way. 100-mile-an-hour wreck. I'll do that, I guess. Went right through the jeans and stuff. So I had a lot of pain, hip pain from that one. I ruptured my elbow. No, I did have my jacket on. I probably would have shattered that arm had I not had CE approved armor and stuff. But overall, got up and bike rode it home. By the time I got home, my shock had worn off. And the pain kicked in and my elbow had swelled up, and it was pretty hard to take my jacket off and stuff. So I did go to the hospital and make sure my elbow wasn't broken. But yeah, it was fine. So
what happened? Just laid the bike down? Or...
Well, on larger bikes, you have a steering stabilizer, steering damper, some people call it. The Aprilia had a stock one, an non-Öhlins actually. I think it was a SOX suspension. Anyways, it was probably a little abusive to the bike overall. Yeah, like ride them to their limits. Push them pretty hard to redline them. Wheelies aren't good for your bike. So setting down wheelies can be rough on your steering damper. When you set your wheel down a little crooked at 100 miles an hour plus, it snaps your wheel back to straight again, and that damper is trying to slow that wheel from turning left and right. And so when it gets snapped back, it's abusive on the damper. At some point during that ride that day, my damper had actually exploded. It came apart, so all the oil came out of it. And I didn't notice because its location. It was in a spot that wasn't visible. And the oil, I didn't see it because it was dripping down the fork. So it all, probably like one of those Final Destination movies, 20 minutes of dripping down the fork. It gets down onto the axle, gets onto the wheel, gets onto the tire. So one corner accelerating at 100, coming out of it. Normal lean angle, normal acceleration. Very comfortable. Done it a trillion times. Come out of a corner just like that, and out of nowhere, front end dove. Thought for sure I maybe hit some oil or something on the road, or some pebbles, And after we picked the bike up and started it, I got back on it and immediately noticed. I was looking it over for damage, and I noticed there was moisture on the front end, up on the wheel and on the tire, and I touched it and I noticed it was oil, and it just all of it clicked right then. I followed the oil up, found the damper exploded, and it hadn't happened from the wreck. I could tell because of the way that it had dripped. It was all gravity. If it had happened during the wreck, it would have just kind of splattered all over up in the front end of the bike. So it told me I had been riding like that for a while, and I saw it on the tire, just barely onto the edge where you ride, and literally a drip. And that drip is what made me go down. And unfortunate. Bit of bike maintenance might have helped that. Maybe upgraded stabilizer would have been nice. Olin's one.
And you caught it all on video.
Yep. Our backwoods talking shenanigans. My buddy pulling out his big buck knife and straightening out my shift lever so I could ride home. Riding home one-armed. Yeah, I didn't use my clutch too much. I had to pull with my shoulder instead of my elbow because it wasn't folding inside of the gear anymore because it swelled up. Got a lot of pressure in there.
Jeez. It's just like one horror story after another.
Oh, I got better ones.
I mean,
I saved the horror stories. These are the
this is just the intro.
Yeah, these are the hero stories.
Wow. Were you at any point were you thinking, oh, this is going to be some good content for YouTube?
We
got to upload this right away.
I did make sure that I still I assumed my camera shattered off because I tumbled so many times. But I think one of the first things I said, if you look at the video, was, can you grab my GoPro? He's like, it's still on your face. I was like, oh, sweet. It didn't come off. My shoes came off. Everything else came off, But yeah, it was pretty cool to have it on video, I guess, in hindsight. But overall, I don't record too much of the gruesome stuff because people don't like to see that. I don't like to see it. I don't want to watch people wreck. I want to see them not wreck, almost wreck, and save it. Yeah, that's what I want to see. I don't want to see the pain. I don't want to see money getting thrown out the window, bikes go tumbling down the road. I don't want to see the negative stuff. So I try to not post that stuff if I can, but it certainly has. I think it has more views than any other one on my Facebook.
I was gonna say I don't like to see it,
YouTube
but those
channel.
videos definitely get a lot of traction.
Yeah, they do.
There's something weird in people where you don't like to see it, but it's almost like you have to see it if it's in front of you.
Yep, like those surgery videos that come up every once in a while on your YouTube. And you're like, I gotta click it. Is that?
We just gotta see what happens.
Yep.
Oh man. That's.
Overall the bike was fine.
It's all part of the fun.
It barely had a scratch on it.
Rode it home.
Yeah, rode it home. Already had other parts that were on the way from Italy at that moment that actually replaced the parts that got scratched. So a couple of days later, I'm still hurt, but gave me a great chance to work on my bike because all the parts showed up to completely get rid of all the damaged spots. I had a whole new tail section that was on its way and exhaust and all that. So yeah, actually didn't sustain any damage. Most people think you lay a bike down at 100, it's gonna be toast. I didn't even want to look. I'm like, oh, my bike. So where I just assumed it was not gonna ride again, much less be totally fine. It came out less scathed than I did.
I can't believe people were giving you shit on that video. That's the crazy part.
That really irks me too. You'll see a few comments from me chiming right back at him with that.
Oh, you can't read the comments. You can't go in there,
buddy.
It's a dark place.
You clearly need to ride a 250. I mean, oops.
How long have you been making videos?
Oh man,
Has that been a more recent thing, or
over 10 years? I've been making motorcycle videos.
Oh wow!
The Shift Like Alex channel is just more. After I got involved with the Humboldt on Two Wheels group and the local riding groups, before that I was riding solo. I didn't really know that we even had local motorcycle groups besides, Harley, Hell's Angels, off groups and stuff. And I didn't really see that there was that many riders at any given time in any location. You reach out in any area you're at and you're gonna find 1,000 riders. Like, wow, almost every person down the block actually rides. Wait a minute. It's surprising to see how many people actually ride. A lot of people who are against it are just against it because they had a family member die or they got hurt or something similar, like a negative experience from it. But other than that, most people have learned to ride a bike, and can say they're a rider. Almost every one of my friends can ride a motorcycle or has a motorcycle, Yeah. And I found that out after joining the group. I'm like, oh, you're in it too? You have a street bike? What? Like I had no idea some of my friends even rode or had street bikes, And it's awesome to see us all come together. I can pretty much reach out anytime I'm in, any city and find someone that I could go hang out and ride with, Similar skill levels is something that's fun to go find in another city. You can go join a Facebook group there or something and be like, hey, anyone want to go do the this twisty road that I see here and do some wheelies and stuff, and you'll find other people that ride similar to you and spark your enthusiasm that day.
And so that's what started the videos.
Yeah,
was finding that group.
Yeah, so finding the group made me want to let others see the riding, because oftentimes when we ride in our groups, a lot of the riders will obey all traffic laws. And when we get out on the twisties, I open it up. Even in town, I speed a little bit, like I said, mostly to keep away from the traffic and stuff. But oftentimes I'd find myself in front of the pack and no one really gets to see the riding. There's one or two guys up there with you riding at that pace. So it's nice to be able to share the footage and let them know, what I'm doing up there and how fast that they can go, safely. They see me go around a corner and they look down, it says 130 miles an hour and I'm leaned over and they're like, you can do that? They might not know that it's even possible, and there I am comfortably doing it and I can take a hand off it, and show them that it's totally safe. So then it encourages them to, speak up next time they're riding with me and ask for some tips, like, hey, I saw you do something or whatever, or you always ride with one finger here on the clutch, yada, yada, and there's a reason for almost everything I do when I ride, so there's tips that I can give, even another experienced rider. I think that everyone should always be open to helpful criticism, because it's not always really, definitely when I give someone pointers, it's not to put them down. It's to help them feel safer and have a better time and enjoy the experience, maybe safer, like I said, maintaining your bike is part of riding. It's something you have to know how to do as well as open the throttle, and turn. So knowing how to look for a dangerous situation on your bike is super important and overlooked by so many new riders. Bald tires, leaking fork seals, a blown steering damper, it can happen to the best of us. So even an experienced rider, you can never look at your bike enough or take tips from someone else enough. There's always something to learn. I've been riding for years and years, and every time I ride, I learn something new. Every single time. There's always another experience and something else that comes to mind. More learning to be had.
And so those videos are just kind of you helping share that with everybody. That's cool.
Yeah, I'd love, like I said, I'd love to start getting more involved with the audience, because what I really want to do possibly is even open classes, riding classes, to help people at all different stages of riding, all the way up to stunting. If someone's, I don't want to encourage people to go do wheelies, but if someone wants to learn, the guy to talk to, I'll give you all kinds of helpful pointers, and I'd like to be able to offer that. I wish I could offer it free, but my time's valuable, so it'd be awesome to start a business doing that locally or something, or even being able to, offer people online lessons or something, because I do have a knack for seeing people's, holdups on their learning when it comes to riding. I'll see generally out of my own experience, fears or something that limits me, or I feel capped off at my abilities. I sometimes can help people find a useful tip or way of thinking about it that helps them, leapfrog over that problem that they're having. A lot of people, like for instance, wheelies, are afraid when it comes up. Getting to balance points are really, it's a whole nother step from doing a wheelie. Learning how to maintain a wheelie. So a lot of people can do a wheelie, but not a lot of people can slow a wheelie down. And do sustained wheelies. So it's just a hinge. People get to it, and sometimes they get right past it, and other people never can get past that for the rest of their lives, and they get locked in. And it's disappointing for me to see people assume that they can't, because everyone can, and a lot of it's just in your mind. It's a fear. You're locking yourself up and not making the right instinct at the right moment. Generally it's the brake. It's always the brake. You do your wheelie. If you notice my videos, a lot of times I'll pick my wheel up well beyond balance point and slam that brake on and bring that front wheel forward again. And I'm actually finding balance point on my drop of my front wheel rather than the pickup. A lot of people pick it up. Personally, I want to get over that big fear real quick, whip it up beyond balance point, hit my brake, and already get over the fear right away. So now I'm in balance point and totally comfortable and just got it out of the way. And a lot of people think of it the other way. They think of it as, I'm going to find balance point as I'm picking up. So they're just waiting for the inevitable loop out rather than already get used to using your brake, whip it up fast, have used your brake once in the wheelie. It already sets you up to continue to tap it along.
And then you're just riding the throttle out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So you can just ride your throttle. I mean, the Sur-Ron in particular has adjustable engine braking. A lot of new motorcycles do with fuel injection and stuff too. So I personally don't need to adjust it, but for like someone else who's building a bike or a customer, I definitely adjust the engine braking to suit their needs. For wheelies, mostly, a lot of people want to try wheelies with these electric bikes because how easy it is. And just putting a larger rear sprocket and getting people comfortable with that rear brake is so much. I've seen people progress in a week, where they were scared to pick the front wheel up to, going all the way down the block. It's pretty awesome. They never expected to be able to, and it's cool to give people tips and to help them leapfrog ahead so that we can all ride together, and enjoy things and learn together. It's fun.
I think that would be awesome. We don't have any class. There's nothing like that around here. You just have the class to get your license, but they're not really teaching you anything substantial.
I want to teach the fun stuff, not just the safety stuff. I want to teach the stuff that might be difficult, and that might, some people frown on it in society still because it's like snowboards. Just don't know yet that it's safe, Legalize wheelies. Come on, guys.
That's a movement I can get behind.
I literally am paying more attention to the road when I'm stunting than I am at any other point of traveling in life. I walk around with my cell phone out, almost walking into telephone poles. I drive around listening to music, trying to change the song, looking out the window, one hand on the wheel. When I'm stunting, I am locked in on 10 things at once on the road. I'm focusing on the cars, how far away I am, who's on the side of the road, what my dangers are, and because of that, I have much less accidents than I would if I was just riding around without stunting, without paying attention, just trying to travel. I only know that because it's when I'm not paying attention and I'm not stunting that I generally have an accident and go down. I'm not paying attention to the road, hit some gravel. What was I thinking?
Should have been stunting.
Should have been stunting. Should have had my finger on that brake.
All right. Well, I don't want to take up. We've done like hour 45. I don't want to take up too much of your guys' birthday day.
Yep.
Where where can people find you if they're interested, checking out the videos?
Shift Like Alex, I've mentioned a couple times. I got an Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. I have a Facebook public page, for my athlete career. I also have another Instagram that goes by Papa Wheelies. I might convert that one to being more devoted to the audience, like I said. Both the haters and the fans.
Get everybody in there.
Yeah, I realize the haters are going to be there either way. Like I said, it's about 50-50, so, might as well encourage them. You all come on in to comment all you want.
Okay. Well, thank you both for coming. That was a blast, man.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
Well, yeah. By the way, the wife has an Instagram, too. She's starting to learn wheelies on her Sur-Ron.
Okay.
Sur-Ron707 on Instagram. And feel free to subscribe.
Okay. Well, thank you both. That was a blast. Really.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for having us.